If you don't know this man, then you probably know someone like him. He's one of those people who can't take anything seriously.
Some gold-plated chains would make a nice retirement gift for a very, very good slave. Well,
Are you serious?
Well, this was written...
Are you serious?
This was written years ago.
Did you just write that?
Dirty Work. Bob Saget's directorial debut, released in 1998 and starring Norm MacDonald and Artie Lange. This movie completely bombed at the box office and failed to make an impression. It's your simple story. The main character's a loser, main character gets the girl, main character loses girl because he's a loser, main character gets girl back despite being a loser, main character loses girl again because he's an asshole.
No, I thought she was a whore.
And gets the girl back and they live happily ever after. The script is plain and boring. The music is either generic rock music or music that I can't play because of copyright. It's just one of your run-of-the-mill 90s comedy movies. Or so the Germans would have you believe. Dirty Work is actually good, and is a lot more self-aware than you think it is. Because I see through the lies. I know what Norm is hiding. I know Norm intentionally wrote jokes that weren't funny. I know he purposely wrote the love interest in this film to be as platonic as possible. This is not a romantic relationship, and you will not trick me! But if I may be serious for a second, this is a movie that I should write off, but I simply can't. And it's all to do with its lead star, Norm MacDonald. We'll be looking at Norm's style of comedy as well as his history with SNL. For reference, I'm going to be quoting a lot from the book Live from New York. I bought this book back in 2016 for my uni course, and I'm finally using it. Money well spent. Disclaimer, I'm probably looking way too deep in what we've established already is a dated formulaic 90s comedy movie. Enjoy. It is very hard to describe Norm's sense of humor, but I'll give it a go. Norm MacDonald was a true rebel, known for his mischievous smile and Canadian accent. Norm had a very deadpan delivery and would purposely say words that were incredibly outdated, not in the way that was used to offend people, but in the sense that he was an old-fashioned folksy man. Norm could be clean, but he could also do a lot of black comedy as well. Norm was also known for telling lengthy stories that would seemingly go nowhere, but would deliver a punchline out of nowhere. Norm was also known for quote-unquote dad jokes that were only funny just because of how he said them.
Do you know the Harlem Shake?
Yeah, I've seen it on every single commercial.
You've seen it. Then you'll appreciate this joke. I remember back when the Harlem Shake was just a black fella holding me upside down off a fire escape trying to collect his money.
Can you find out what the quickest way is to the Santa Monica Freeway, please? And don't call me again.
Norm was known for intentionally bombing on stage. Sometimes if the crowd booed him, he would proceed like nothing happened, or he would bomb, but then get the crowd back on his side, depending on what he felt like at the time. Now, let's quickly discuss Norm's acting chops. Norm MacDonald had an interesting approach to acting. He was really bad at it.
Get away from me.
Hey, mister, what's in the suitcase? Hand it over!
Get away from me, you little shit.
Hey, mister, what's in the suitcase?
Get away from me, little shits. I'm really angry. Just in case you can't tell I'm really angry, then I'll just tell you. I'm real angry. Reminds me of that great tragedy, you know? Yeah, so Norm himself even said that he was not a good actor, and even his most diehard fans will tell you that he did play himself in every film he was in. But I want to go back to this idea later on. Now we have this context, however, let's move on. Norm had previously written for The Dennis Miller Show and The Roseanne Show, but was employed by SNL in 1994. Well known for his impressions of David Letterman and Burt Reynolds, Norm never saw himself as a sketch guy. What Norm loved doing, however, was Weekend Update, which was co-written by Jim Downey. To describe Norm's approach to Update, let's quote the man himself. "I have more faith in me and Jim than I did in my own audience. I just like doing jokes I like, and if the audience doesn't like them, then they're on, not me." That is definitely the best way to describe Norm's comedy on Weekend Update, because it was so complimentary to his persona. Sometimes he'd kill it, but sometimes he would bomb.
According to a new survey by the Women's Vote Project, women would be more likely to vote if they could send in ballots by mail or if polls were open longer. Also, more women would vote if you were permitted to bake your vote.
Sometimes he would get mixed reactions from the crowd.
The show's next week, Simpsons' newest video, Dwarf on Stalking.
The crowd is torn.
And sometimes he would intentionally bomb, bring back the audience, just to intentionally bomb again.
Safer drivers, men or women? Well, according to a new survey, 55% of adults feel that women are most responsible for minor fender benders, while 78% blame men for most fatal crashes. Please note that the percentages in these pie graphs do not add up to 100% because the math was done by a woman. For those of you hissing at that joke, it should be noted that that joke was written by a woman. So now you don't know what the hell to do. No, I'm just kidding. We don't hire women.
Norm on Weekend Update was must-see TV, and he was so different from the other sketches. Things seemed to be going well for our favorite Canadian, but in order to understand Dirty Work, we have to go back to 1995. It all started with an article called "Comedy is Not Funny." This was an infamous article that not only savaged the show and performers, but also provided concrete proof to show that the television ratings had plummeted at this point. With ratings down 19% from 2 years ago, and NBC nervously watching the show's weekly budget climb to an all-time high of $1.5 million, executive producer Lorne Michaels still hasn't figured out how to put the fun back in dysfunctional. NBC had to step in and had to fix the ratings somehow. Here we're introduced to a main character in our story, the West Coast president, Don Allmeyer. Now, these events that we will talk about happened 20 odd years ago, and Don passed away in 2017, so he's no longer around to defend himself, so I'm going to try and be as fair to him as I can. Don, in all fairness, was an intelligent and respected executive with years in the industry. When Don returned to NBC as president in 1993, NBC returned to first place in television ratings with classic shows such as Seinfeld, Friends, and of course, Late Night with Conan O'Brien. In fact, Conan himself even said, "Don Allmeyer was the one who suggested me for Late Night. He gave me the job, so I had a lot of feelings of loyalty towards Don Allmeyer. I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Don sticking with me. I owe him that." We will go back to this quote later. Ironically enough, if it wasn't for Don, we would have never had Conan O'Brien's legendary talk show, and in turn, we would have never had Norm's insane interviews with Conan. I guess you could say, Don created a monster of his own undoing there. So, no matter what I say about Don later, we actually have a lot to thank him for. In fact, we can also thank Don for Norm doing Weekend Update for as long as he did. Ironically, MacDonald had originally taken over Update with Allmeyer's implicit blessing. He had been adamant at the time that the position not be given to an SNL legend who had long wanted it, and was an old pro at ruffling peacock feathers, Al Franklin. That's according to Miller and Shales. Imagine giving the position to Norm MacDonald because you think he's going to be safe and conservative. That's like asking Madeleine McCann's parents to babysit your kid. It's not going to happen. Anyways, it was up to Don Allmeyer to help Lorne Michaels, who was the executive producer for SNL, and give him advice on how to improve the television ratings. Allmeyer said that, "No, I never gave Lorne an ultimatum, but what I basically said to him is, the show has to get better." There were several people that Don looked at and didn't get. This will be an ongoing theme, as you'll see, and he wanted them gone. These people included Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Jim Downey, who was the head writer for SNL at the time, and, you guessed it, Norm MacDonald. Lorne Michaels was forced to fire Farley and Sandler, while Downey was ousted as a head writer. According to Live from New York, Downey resurfaced thanks to artful maneuvering by Lorne Michaels, his duties limited mainly to the Update segment. Jim Downey would go on to work with Norm on the Update segments, and while Don was not happy with this, he was willing to give him a chance. Jim Downey was basically a scapegoat at this time for the decline in television ratings. Downey has looked back at his time in SNL and admitted that he was quote-unquote burned out, and his marriage was falling apart as the show took over his life. Maya said that, "I wasn't one of these kinds of people that would glad hand people then talk behind their backs." Oh, you better believe we're also going back to this quote. Jim Downey is maybe a good political satirist writer as has ever been in television. I think when Jim Downey was the head writer, there were some issues on the show. When you have the talent that was assembled during that period, and the shows were as flat as they were, there's some issues somewhere. Jim Downey believes that Allmeyer blamed him because we came off this gigantic ratings year, 92 to 93, which had to do with Wayne's World. Now let's go back to Norm MacDonald. For those unaware, there are two reasons why Don did not like Norm. Firstly, he did not get him. Norm says that Allmeyer and his crew thought every joke in Update should kill, and the audience should be clapping and cheering and stuff. My response was, I hate applause. I don't like an audience applauding because to me that's like a cheap kind of high. They control you. And while you can applaud voluntarily, you can't laugh voluntarily. You have to laugh involuntarily. So I hate when an audience applauds. The idea that Norm quote-unquote didn't care about the audience is what set Don off. Don said that was the whole problem. When Saturday Night Live is really good, they do care about what the audience thinks. And when Saturday Night Live is not really good, they're kind of doing it for themselves and their pals. That was what I felt was the weakness of Weekend Update at the time, which is what they were doing it for themselves. There were a lot of inside references. He also did not see Norm as a ratings draw, as he went on to say that what you had then was you had people tuning out during Update, and that had never happened before. You never had dropout during Update. Jim Downey recalls that the studios hated the stares that Norm would do after jokes, regardless if they killed or bombed, so Don clearly did not think Norm was funny. You know what the second reason was.
Down and out O.J. Simpson, depressed that all of his money-making ideas have failed, has decided to go back to doing what he does best, killing people.
Now, O.J. is also a man who is dead and also can't defend himself. Aren't we lucky? Norm's many jokes about O.J. during and after his trial are legendary. It's ironic. Don didn't like Norm because he wouldn't get applause, and Norm did not like getting applauded. Yet the only time Norm was truly applauded was with the O.J. jokes.
In an effort to raise money for his enormous legal bills, O.J. Simpson this week began marketing a video which attempts to prove his innocence. Should the tape not sell, Simpson has a backup idea, his very own video of the actual murders themselves.
Here is the thing that you always hear about Norm. Norm was fired from SNL, and at the time, he was told that it was because he, quote-unquote, wasn't funny. But rumors circulated at the time that he was fired because of the jokes about OJ. I wanted to look further into this to see if that was really the reason. Was it really the OJ jokes, or was there something else at play? Did Don really love OJ that much? Don was not a fan of the jokes, as everyone knows, but he kind of gave Norm a few more chances than you think he did. In order to grasp Don's feelings for OJ, I'm gonna read out a quote by him on his friend. It's lengthy, but I feel I have to quote him here. My only concern was what I thought was best for the show. I might be wrong or full of shit, but it wasn't like I had some political agenda. The OJ Simpson thing was over by this time. I put everybody at NBC in a very awkward situation, you know? I was brought up that you don't desert somebody who's been a friend for 27 years because he's at the worst point in his life. My decision to be supportive of OJ as a person caused a tremendous amount of grief to people at NBC, to my family, to my kids. I did it because I wasn't going to desert somebody who'd been my friend for 27 years. But when the whole situation with OJ started, I called Lon, I called Jay Leno, and I called Conan. And I said, look, this is awkward, but I'm telling you, if you in any way lay off the situation out of a concern for what I might think, forget about my feelings, just what I might think, you're crazy. You have a job to do. It's the biggest story in the country right now, and you have to deal with it the way you think is best. That was the difficult part of the Norm situation, because it resurrected all the OJ stuff again. You know, life isn't fair, but that to me was like, what does this have to do with that? Oh boy. So, on one hand, he's kind of admirable here. He's sticking up for his friend. Don taking offense and standing up for a friend in ways is admirable. Even if he did do it. But I do get the sense here that if OJ was found guilty, then maybe Don would have excused the jokes. But as we all know, he wasn't. On October 3rd, 1995, OJ was found not guilty by a jury. What Don probably thought was that when the trial ended and the verdict was given, that Norm would lay off the jokes. You know where this is going.
Thanks, I'm Norm MacDonald, and now the fake news. Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California.
Travis.
Damn it, that looks bad.
We've got to stop the hemorrhaging. Martin, could you wait outside?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry about what happened.
It's all right, Martin. Wasn't your fault. By the end of the day, I'd like Martin jobless, homeless, penniless, and hairless.
Well, that's not quite what happened. This was 1995 after all, and Norm was given the boot in late 1997. But when Norm is literally calling OJ a murderer on TV, you know it's slightly miffed on. Yes, I called him one too, but he's dead and can't sue me. Robert Wright was Don's boss at the time, and when asked if Norm was fired because of OJ, he said this: Don is a very easy guy to misread. He's so blunt, but you can't necessarily read into the bluntness that he's unfair. Wright didn't think OJ was the reason for Norm's firing, as he, Don, could get very angry about people who were anti-OJ, but doing anything about it from a business standpoint was never part of the agenda. He didn't think Norm was funny, and he probably didn't think the OJ stuff was either. So, long story short, Don did not like Norm, and Norm didn't like OJ, but Norm MacDonald and Jim Downey was still with SNL. Now with that context, let's take a break from the OJ stuff for a moment, and let's look at Dirty Work itself.
Hand over the milk money, Weaver.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Derek. I'm just not sure you'll spend it on milk.
That's me, Mitch Weaver.
Oh god, not the "yep, that's me" cliche. This is not a good start so far. The kid does a good impression of Norm, to be fair, but the music and generic narration we've seen in almost every movie ever... Guys, maybe I was wrong about this film.
Do you know where he hides his...
Mitch, Sam and Pops are watching TV one night when Pops suddenly has a heart attack and is admitted into hospital. Pops needs an operation, but he's at the bottom of the list. Now, believe me when I say this, but Dirty Work actually has a lot of social commentary in it, including its criticism of the American healthcare system. Just kidding, there isn't one. Norm was a Canadian and didn't have this problem. If you want to see a criticism of the American healthcare system, watch Breaking Bad, you nerds. Anyways, Pops can be moved up to the top of the list on one condition. Norm meets Dr. Farvin, who's played by Chevy Chase. In short, the doctor is addicted to gambling and is in debt for $50,000. He is willing to move Pops up to the top of the list if he is paid this amount of money. Chase is pretty funny in this film, as the situation becomes more and more pathetic as the story goes on.
No, all his blood levels are good. Should cut down on the finger foods.
Hey, Doc, what happened to your foot?
What I don't understand is, when you owe a bookie a lot of money, and he, say, blows off one of your toes, you still owe him the money. Doesn't seem fair to me. Especially when he's going to kill me in 4 days anyway.
Maybe they should take Norm's advice and use the Harlem Shake to get the money back. Anyways, Mitch and Sam set off to get the money for Pop Theater. This is where comedy legend Don Rickles comes in. Immortalized by Artie Lange on the Howard Stern show, Artie has a lot of great stories about the making of Dirty Work and Don Rickles. Rickles was stupidly given a script where he could not remember his lines, so he improvised them. At this point, Rickles had previously worked with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Sharon Stone, and Martin Scorsese in Casino, so in the words of Artie Lange, you know, no pressure. Artie and Norm could not stop laughing, so this scene had to be shot multiple times. Rickles absolutely roasts Norm and Artie, which leads to Norm's actual laughs being included in the final cut. I won't show you the full scene, it is on YouTube and you should watch it, but I will show you this.
You get a horse and live in the mountains someplace and don't bother anybody. Got a personality like a dead moth.
Look at that scowl and listen to that delivery. That's not acting. That's Don realizing that he went from working with Robert De Niro to working with Norm MacDonald, who can't keep a straight face if his life depended on it.
How you got this movie, I'll never know.
Rickles is so hated that the other workers bet Mitch and Sam $50 that they can't sabotage the mean-spirited Don Rickles. So they break into the projectionist room and show gay porn in the theater. You think I'm joking, don't you? The grand opening is ruined, all thanks to Mitch and Sam. Mitch gets his $50 and is given an idea. In order to raise money for the operation, Mitch and Sam decide to open a revenge service aptly named Dirty Work Inc., where people pay them money to get revenge on people they don't like. So Mitch and Sam are doing other people's dirty work, hence the name of the film. All Mitch has to do is pay his landlord Mr. Kirkpatrick on time and the business stays open. This reunites Mitch with Kathy, who we saw earlier. Now it's time to take a tangent and talk about this. I have no idea why she's in this film. These two don't even share a kiss, and they don't seem like they would even connect with one another. So, why is she here?
I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah, why are you here? Oh, wait, I remember. Intense physical attraction to me.
I think Norm purposely wrote a platonic relationship, and here is my theory. Remember that piece of shit movie, Chairman of the Board, starring Carrot Top, where he's in an on-screen relationship with Courtney Van Smith? Because Norm definitely remembers.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
I think Norm did this to make fun of comedians who put themselves into films and sketches where they make out with models. No, not Adam Sandler. I'm talking about Chris Kattan. Chris Kattan had supposed feuds with Norm, Jim Brewer, Tracy Morgan and Will Ferrell on the set of SNL, and he was infamous for being seen with different women on the set of SNL every day. Norm and Jim thought that, for a guy who was with a lot of girls, he seemed a bit gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Norm was not homophobic, but with Kattan's perceived ego, it was felt that he was overcompensating for something. It all came to a head on an episode of SNL when Chris Kattan put himself in a sketch to make out with Pamela Anderson. In the Twilight Zone sketch, Norm was supposed to be doing an impression of Rod Sterling and was having trouble with it. Chris was apparently putting Norm down for this, in front of Pamela Anderson, even with minutes before his live sketch going on. Chris Kattan kept egging Norm on, minutes before the sketch was going live. Norm was silent for this abuse, but according to Jim Brewer, with 10 seconds to go, Norm said this.
Norm turns to Kattan. Right before he says, he goes, "Hey, Pamela, did Chris tell you he's gay yet? And he's got all this rage because he likes being gay. Everyone, why don't you just say you're gay and you wouldn't have all this anger and be a pester? 5 seconds! And you wouldn't have all this rage and try to interrupt everyone's sketch because you suck this week. And we're on! Imagine if you will." Right, there's my hero.
Norm intentionally did a terrible Rod Sterling impression to get Kattan's guard down, then did a pitch-perfect Rod Sterling impression to humiliate him in front of Pamela Anderson. Based. But let's leave Kattan alone for a sec. According to Kattan, this feud between him and Norm was apparently a ruse, as they both had mutual respect for each other, and Norm even said he was a great guy. But considering Norm also said later on that OJ was a great guy, I would take what he says with a pinch of salt. If Norm told me what my PIN number was, I still wouldn't believe him. And then I'd wonder how he knew that.
No.
So, is there something to this theory? Probably not. But I will say this. Norm could do a terrible Rod Sterling impression and then do a pitch-perfect Rod Sterling impression on command. I thought Norm said he couldn't act though. Interesting. I'm on to you, Norm. I know your secrets.
No.
This is so we can get a free commercial for dirty work on live television.
Mitch and Sam hire several hookers to play dead in the back of his cars, humiliating the car salesman on live TV. Mitch uses this opportunity to promote Dirty Work Inc. This would never happen in a million years, because A, who has a live TV advert, and B, Chris Farley's character makes an appearance as he recognizes one of the hookers as the girl who bit his nose off. He scares her off in plain sight of everyone, so clearly she's not a dead hooker. Just nod and pretend it makes sense.
Don't shoot this! This is not part of the commercial! Is some jerk making your life miserable? You want revenge? Call 555-0187. Let us do your dirty work!
The Dirty Work advert is a success as it gains traction, but Kathy breaks up with Mitch for the first time as she ends up losing her job at the dealership. This does make sense considering she's jobless now, and because Mitch is a loser. It's time we take another tangent, as we need to talk about the director of the movie, Bob Sagat.
Oh, Bob Sagat!
Now, I'm not an expert on Bob Sagat, as I've never seen Full House, as it has to do with Sagat's directing and Artie and Nom's facial expressions. I don't want to spoil these, but I will say, one scene includes fish, the other scene includes a revelation near the end of the film, which to this day still makes me burst out from laughter, and the other one is the jail scene. We will definitely talk about that scene later. Mitch and Sam are eventually hired by an old lady whose house and her entire block is about to be demolished so it could become a car park for the Chelsea Opera House. This is being opened up by Travis Cole, as we saw earlier. Mitch and Sam are able to put a stop to it. However, in a funny twist of fate, the police instantly know that Mitch and Sam were the culprits, because they own a business which specializes in taking revenge on people. So Mitch and Sam are thrown into jail. I did make fun of the film earlier for not making sense, but that is pretty funny. Mitch's antics on TV make Travis Cole look very bad, as Mitch and Sam are portrayed as heroes. This is where Cole fires one of his employees, who coincidentally enough happens to be played by Jim Downey. This brings us to the jail scene. There are certain words that I can't use here. Most comedies from the 90s always have a scene like this. It's crude, it's crass, it's lowbrow, it's outdated, but this scene is really funny. Here it is. Oh boy, where do I start? Firstly, Norm is perfect. The weird twitch he does, his disappointed tone which makes him sound like a teacher scalding an angsty teenager, the pointing, the complete sense of denial. Secondly, the launch shot which captures the nonchalant reactions from Artie, Lange and the prisoners in the background, which implies that they watched this happen. And number 3, the other thing.
Except for the other thing. Except for the other thing. Except for the other thing.
There is something I have not told you yet. Dirty Work, believe it or not, is rated PG-13. Let me repeat that. This film, with this joke in it, as well as incest jokes and jokes, is rated PG-13. How the hell did they get away with this? You can't tell by the lip syncing, and according to Bob Sagat himself, Norm actually does say the R word, but because of the rating, it got changed to the other thing. Honestly, I actually think this is funnier. Mitch is clearly in denial of what happened, despite the fact that everyone saw this. He's like a kid who just got his lunch money stolen and he's gonna tell the teacher about the naughty bullies. It's absolutely hysterical.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Travis Cole decides to do a big PR move and releases Mitch and Sam from jail to make himself look good. Would it be nice if he did it before the other thing, but I digress. Travis Cole owns a property that has been taken over by gangs and prostitutes, so he asks Mitch and Sam to vandalize the property until it's uninhabitable. Despite their suspicion of Travis' motives, Mitch is now truly down and out. Pops can't get the operation, he falls out with Sam, and Kathy breaks up with him for the second time. And Mitch's business is closed and he's now homeless. Oh, and he also gets his ass kicked again by the frat boys.
Really? I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought it was funny, but I'm surprised you guys did because you got your asses kicked.
Mitch is down and out, and it doesn't look good for him. But wait! Remember the tape recorder? It's a plot device, and it turns out that Mitch unknowingly recorded Travis Cole admitting that he doesn't own the property. Mitch conducts a plan in order to get revenge on Travis Cole and to get the $50,000 they were promised. Mitch and Sam become best friends again, and they enlist the help of everyone who was wronged by Travis, including Kathy and her mother.
Okay, listen up. In the past 2 weeks, I have been beaten up, I've been thrown out of buildings, I've slept in my car, I've spent the night in jail.
Yeah, when you were in jail, man, those guys...
Even Jim Downey and Mr. Kirkpatrick get in on the action. Mitch, Sam, and the rest of the gang break into the opera house and they ruin Travis Cole's play. Downey and the homeless people stink up the joint. Chris Farley scares everyone away with his army of horrible CGI skunks, and Pop sexually harasses the actresses on stage. Don't ask why he can walk after having a heart attack.
Get a load of that mountain ranger!
Everyone is distracted, which allows Mitch to blackmail Travis Cole, and he's forced to raise the check for $50,000. Dr. Farthing gets the money for the operation, but Travis steals the tape recorder from Mitch. Thankfully, Mitch has a copy which enrages Travis.
Bastard! You can destroy me. I'm Travis Cole. No one destroys Travis Cole.
Hey, get away from me, you little shit. I've had sex with men bigger than you, pal.
Hey, fat lady, are you okay?
Oh, here's some. What the hell is going on, Mitch?
Travis Cole is thrown in jail, Chris Farley marries the girl who bit his nose off, Pops is cancelled by the Me Too movement, Sam is still fat, and Mitch gets the girl. Wonder what happened to Dr. Farthing?
Oh, and Dr. Farthing? Well, he got over his gambling problem, but the bookies beat him to death anyway. So he's dead. That's it. Bye.
And that was Dirty This. There are many plot points and gags I have not told you about, but I think we should clear up a few things. If you have not turned the video off already or thrown your laptop out the window due to my mental gymnastics in analyzing a stupid movie that nobody cares about, you're probably wondering to yourself by now, I'm just a dumb fanboy of Norm who's making excuses for him, but I can assure you, I might be dumb, I might be a fanboy, Wait, what's the first thing you said? To prove I'm not being biased, I will quickly discuss another Norm-led project, Screwed. Screwed is another movie where Norm is the starring lead, and it does not work. At all.
Get away from me, you little shit!
While this boils down to the script, truthfully, I think it is because of Norm himself. As illustrated earlier, Norm wasn't a great actor, and he does feel like a fish out of water here. Norm simply does not work as the straight man. Norm only works when he is in on a joke. Norm works as the prankster who's not interested in politics or philosophy, he's interested in making people laugh. Why am I criticizing Norm in Screwed, but praising him in Dirty Work? I wanted to see who wrote Screwed, and I was not shocked to see it was not written by Norm. Dirty Work, on the other hand, was written by Fred Wolf, Frank Sebastiano, and, you guessed it, Norm MacDonald. This is why Dirty Work works. This is a very generic and formulaic script, but Dirty Work is littered with funny and bizarre one-liners that, no offense to Fred Wolf and Frank, could only come out of Norm's mouth.
So then the guy says, if you want the money for this pizza, you tell Aldo and the rest of those sweaty Italian fruits to come down here and get it from me themselves. Oh, and also, he started saying all these nasty things about that Mussolini character.
So, would you like to come in for some coffee?
Oh, no, I have to go, lift weights. What?
See, I told you, this is a platonic relationship. You can't fool me. Everything here connects, people. The truth will set you free. There is something about this film that is so subversive of its own material. Again, the plot is as formulaic as they come, but comedy movies from time to time will always try and have that one sappy scene where it tries to be motivational and touching. Well, any attempt at being serious in Dirty Work is immediately undercut by a joke. Hell, look at the quote-unquote motivational speech that Mitch does at the end.
Travis Cole screwed all of us. I say it's time we fight back. Are you with me? Okay, are you with me based on the assumption that if I screw up, y'all get to kick my ass?
Mitch is so unlikable that the prospect of getting his ass kicked inspires these people. Mitch is not a great character, but that's why this film is so unique to Norm. Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler are objectively better dramatic actors than Norm was, but if they were in this role, it just wouldn't work. If Mitch was played by any other actor, this film would be painfully dated and unaware, but this is Norm we're talking about. Remember when Norm said, "The audience is wrong and I'm right?" And how Don didn't like him because of the inside references in Weekend Update? Well, Dirty Work is an inside joke. Any other actor who would have played Mitch would either have tried way too hard to be likable and fail, or would have come off as so detestable to any audience. Ace Ventura was like a cartoon character come to life, played to perfection by Jim Carrey. Billy Madison was the immature man-child underdog with a heart of gold, played to perfection by Adam Sandler. Mitch Weaver is just an asshole.
Do you remember when you said this? Note to self, making love to blow-up doll, not as good as advertised. No?
The things that come out of Mitch's mouth are only funny because of Norm's deadpan Canadian accent. There are no attempts at being serious, no attempts at any character development, and the jokes take insanely dark turns that in any other movie they would be considered to be bleak. Dr. Farthing literally would have had a happy ending if this was an Adam Sandler movie, but it isn't. He's living in Norm's world.
Well, look, Mitch says we'll have the money for you.
Oh, thank God. I mean, that's good news, Sam.
But the bookies beat him to death anyway.
He paid off his loan shark, and they still beat him to death. Why? Because Norm thought it was funny. Mitch's character doesn't care because he's got the girl. It is only funny because it's Norm. Now, let's clarify something.
Hey, that's my shirt. Hey, you're wearing my shirt.
Here.
Absolutely. Did Norm put in unfunny jokes to shake the people off who suspected that this film was self-aware? Did Norm intentionally bomb just because he liked doing that? Or did Norm simply write jokes that he thought were funny? We may never know, but that is why his persona works in the film. His deadpan delivery and his inability to take anything seriously makes the film. As simple as Bob's directing is, it actually complements Norm's mannerisms, his tics, and that smile. Oh, that damned smile. Maybe this is because of low expectations, but I was surprised by the subtlety of the lawn shots as they make the jokes far funnier than if they were just explained. Dirty Work works because of Norm. Screwed doesn't work because of Norm. I will talk about the cast for a bit. There's nothing meta about them. They are legitimately fantastic. Artie Lange is a great support to Norm. Don Rickles shines in his burial of Norm and Artie. Chevy Chase and Christopher MacDonald all provide great showings. For eagle-eyed viewers, there are a few cameos that you might recognize. Artie and Norm may not have been the best actors, but they actually do have a lot of great chemistry in this film, and you can tell they had a lot of fun making Dirty Work. And, of course, this brings us back to Chris Farley. Chris, like his other films, gives 100. Now that we've talked about the movie and the cast, it's time that we go back to Don Allmeyer. At the time when Dirty Work was done filming, Don's patience was wearing thin, but Lon Michaels was doing his best to protect Norm and Jim Downey. Lon Michaels told Allmeyer, "If you feel this way at the end of the season, I will make a change." December had come at this point and nothing had been done yet, so it is clear that Lon was putting this decision off more and more. Dirty Work had finished filming by December. Maybe, just maybe, Michaels could have waited a bit longer to protect Norm and Jim Downey, but as we all know, tragedy struck. On 18th December 1997, Chris Farley was found dead in his apartment by his younger brother. He was only 33 years old and he had battled drug addiction as well as alcohol addiction and obesity. Norm MacDonald himself has said, "I was in LA over Christmas. It was the Christmas that Chris Farley died. I think it was right after Christmas, and they told me that Chris had died, and then like 3 hours later, they told me about Update. But by that point, who cared about Update? Because Chris had just died. Somebody told me that Allmeyer had said, I want two things. I want Norm fired, and I want a best of Chris Farley ready to go." The reason I bring up Farley's death is because while it is an understatement to say that Farley's death devastated the cast of SNL, Lon Michaels took it very hard. According to Miller and Shales, some believe that if Michaels hadn't been so emotionally drained by Farley's death, he might have been able to put up a fight and save MacDonald, but it was not to be. But, again, Norm did not immediately lose his job. Don was willing to keep Norm on the show on two conditions. Jim Downey is fired, and Norm does not do Update anymore. Norm said no. One thing I started hearing towards the end was, "You've got to fire Jim." You know, it was almost as if you fire Jim and everything will be cool and you can keep going with Update. I had no interest in anything but Update. This was confirmed by Jim Downey himself on the podcast Conan Needs a Friend. Here is the kicker though. Norm walked away from his dream job and did not even tell Downey.
I'd gotten divorced that year basically, so I was sort of, maybe I was feeling kind of, it's kind of ornery and like, but certainly, and also like with a little less responsibility. Norm, I know, took it much harder than I did. And we didn't get that, we weren't put in that position of having to, to make that decision. It was made for us. But I know that Norm, the story about that, I know you know this story, but I think people who are fans of Norm deserve to know this about him. The network went to Norm and said, "We want to get rid of Jim Downey, and we just want you to know you're cool with that, right?" He said, "No. If you can't fire him. If you fire him, I quit." And they go, "That's crazy. I mean, he's not helping you. The segment's too mean or whatever." And he said, "Well, no, I'm not doing it without him." And he never told me that, and I didn't hear that for years. I heard it from some network executives, and and part of everything else, if that had been me,
That would have been, you bet Norm would have heard.
Norm did it out of respect for someone he admired and was not expecting praise or glory. Norm kept that secret to himself all those years, and for that entire time never told Jim Downey. Interesting. I thought Norm couldn't act though. If Foley had not died, would Norm have kept his job? Could Michaels have kept fobbing off Don from making the decision? We may never know. It is common knowledge that Norm was not exactly fired, but I'm personally more surprised that Don gave him so many chances. In a very weird way, it is kind of fitting this was Foley's last film, because unknowingly, Foley was the last line of defense before Norm getting fired from SNL. This was another sign that Lorne Michaels was losing control. Adam Sandler was fired, Chris Foley was fired, Jim Downey was fired, and now Norm MacDonald. If you watch the outtakes in the credits, you can tell that Norm and Chris loved each other. Dirty Work was Chris Foley's last film to date, and the film is dedicated to his memory. Maybe Foley was a reason why the ratings for SNL went down, and perhaps his persona was getting tiresome at this point. But hey,
some other time maybe we could
No!
go camping.
What?
You know, just you and me.
Okay, let's go.
Mitch and Lonely.
Oh.
So what do you mean, ah? It's not a fucking pantomime, you know?
So Dirty Work had finished filming, Norm got the can, and Foley had died. It's time to advertise Dirty Work, and it's time to become a movie star. First of all, Norm decides to go on the Letterman Show and the Howard Stern Show, and he thought it was funny to say he was fired from SNL. I remember Letterman during a break goes, "This is like some Andy Kaufman thing with fake wrestling, right?" And I go, no, it's serious. Like he thought it was just a gag. Norm has been compared to Andy Kaufman in the past because just like Kaufman, they would both bomb intentionally and do awful impressions, but they would bring back the audience with amazing impressions. In Andy's case, it was his impression of Elvis Presley. They're both known for their legendary performances as well on Letterman. Long story short, Andy Kaufman was in a wrestling feud with Jerry the King Lawler, and they both appeared on Letterman's show to advertise an upcoming match in Memphis. This ended in Jerry slapping the taste out of Kaufman's mouth, which led to a profane rant from Kaufman on live television. Obviously, this wasn't real, because wrestling is not real, and Letterman knew that wrestling wasn't real, but he was not told about the slap beforehand. The discomfort you see from him in the interview is actually real. Why am I bringing this up, you may ask? Well, I think it's interesting that Norm was so convincing in his persona that Letterman thought that he was lying and that he was doing something similar to Andy Kaufman, who was also known for being a prankster and was kind of known for playing a character 24/7. I thought Norm couldn't act. But hey, though, what's the worst that could happen?
Absolutely nothing! Oh, sorry, wrong word. Everything!
Monday, network president Robert Wright, Allmeyer's boss, overturned the decision. Sure, Wright remained supportive of Allmeyer's ban of MacDonald commercials during SNL airtime, but an ad for the flick will still run during Wednesday's NBA Finals telecast. Now, remember when I quoted Conan earlier about how he owed Don? Well, that quote came from Conan himself confirming that Don Allmeyer asked Conan personally to not let Norm back on the show. The word came down. You can't book Norm MacDonald anymore. It came from the top, from Don Allmeyer. So I wrote a letter to Don that said, I got this directive. You've hired me to do the best show I can do, and this is my best guest. So I need to do my job, which is the best show that I can do. Allmeyer proceeded to say something along the lines of, I expected better from you. Well. It looks like Donny Boy's a bit of a hypocrite. As we all know, there's nothing worse than hypocrisy.
The worst part about Cosby was he was a hypocrite, and I said, I don't think that was the worst part.
This man said originally, don't consider my feelings about OJ to Conan and Leno, and now he's telling Conan what to do. I would like to say that Dom wanted Norm gone initially because he wasn't funny, but what he did to Norm on the making of Dirty Work implies there's something else here. I understand Don looking at the television ratings and thinking, okay, who do we keep and who do we axe? And I can get someone not liking a comedian's style because comedy is subjective, but going so far to make sure this man never works on a talk show again and potentially sabotaging his livelihood? This is almost like pure hatred. Why did Don hate Norm so much? Was he so offended at Norm's style of comedy that Don actually thought that this would have affected SNL's viewership, but Conan's viewership as well? Or was Don truly stubborn in his beliefs that he was looking out for OJ? Maybe. Or maybe Don was just a bully on an ego trip who only targeted Norm because he thought he was an easy target. Don likes to say that he doesn't like to talk behind people's backs, yet he did not have the gall to tell Leno to his face that he didn't like the jokes about OJ. He didn't want to give the memo personally to Jim Downey that he was fired, because from Don's own mouth, I mean, it's not my job to talk to Jim Downey. Ironically enough, he said this before his statement that he did not gland-hand people and talk behind their backs. According to Jim Downey, on the other hand, do you know what Don said about him? Allmeyer was practically putting out memos saying, "Do not ask or accept advice from this clown." Interesting. Seems a little bit unprofessional for a top bigwig executive to say, isn't it? Well, I do hate to bring this up as well, but Don was a pretty infamous alcoholic at the stage. He had actually entered into rehab in late 1996. The reason I bring this up is because Warren Littlefield also said, "I think Don wanted to exert control over Lon in ways that Lon did not want to be controlled." It was a battle of wills and egos. Wills and egos, huh? Did Don Allmeyer fire those people just to prove a point? Did he do that just to show that he was the top guy and nobody could question him? He would then kind of make the remark that, I don't know, maybe he was watching it alone at 11:30, it was also before Don was in rehab. Again, this seems like a bit of a joke that he's making because he was friends with Don Allmeyer in real life, but maybe there's something to this. I don't want to ask questions about Don Allmeyer's personal life, but what kind of alcoholic was he? I mean, if he went from saying that Jim Downey was a great writer to then calling him a clown and talking about him the way he did, who knows? Did that affect his judgment, perhaps? Oh, and speaking of talking behind people's backs, Norm had to call Don Allmeyer personally to ask him if he had been fired or not. Don expected someone else to do his dirty work. Again, as a businessman, if he believes they were the reason why the ratings went down, that is his prerogative. But when it is getting to the point that other NBC's executives are overruling you, and when you literally wanted to ruin a man's life just because of a few jokes, you know you've gone too far. Don, who previously had to keep his mouth shut while other people made fun of his shitty friend, contradicted himself by trying to get Norm fired. Why did Don do this? Why did Don think Norm was such an easy target? Well, it's the same reason that Chris Kattan thought Norm was an easy target. Chris Kattan had mocked Norm because he perceived that he could not perform to his own standard. Kattan believed Norm was a bad actor. Emphasis on the word believed. And you know what? I don't think Norm was telling the truth when he said he was a bad actor. In fact, I think Norm was a great actor, and I think he could have won an Oscar if he wanted to, but he never tried to. Let's think about this for a second. Norm purposely puts on a bad Rod Sterling impression to goad Chris Kattan and bamboozled him with an amazing impression just to prove a point. He could do impeccable impressions of David Letterman and Quentin Tarantino. He would go into talk shows and act so stupid to the point where people thought that was just his natural personality. Letterman was so gaslit by his shenanigans that he did not believe Norm when he told him he was fired from SNL and thought it was some quote-unquote Andy Kaufman wrestling thing. And this is a man who walked away from his dream job in respect to Jim Downey and did not tell him for decades. And you're telling me Norm had trouble playing a straight man in Screwed? Nothing adds up here.
No. Mitch, I know you, man. When you say no like that, you really mean yes.
See, here's the thing about Norm MacDonald. Norm in real life was a very intelligent person, and he would constantly take the piss out of other comedians who tried way too hard to come off as intellectual. Norm was infamous for playing the stupidest person in the room, But he really wasn't the stupidest person in the room. He was the smartest. And this is why he tricked people like Kattan and Don Ohlmeyer into thinking that he was an idiot. Apparently, Norm MacDonald was a very smart mathematician and had even studied it. And yes, he did drop out, but the fact that he even studied math in the first place would imply that he's smarter than the average person. And yet, he absolutely hated it when people were called geniuses, because he always felt that it was used in the wrong context all the time. In fact, I think it's time that I told you 2 stories about Norm MacDonald. The first story I'm going to tell you is about the time where he made Harvey Weinstein look like a complete dickhead. Well, he's already made himself look like a bit of a dickhead, but you know. According to Artie, there was an SNL after party with Norm MacDonald, Lorne Michaels and Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, being the obnoxious person that he is, if he thinks something is funny, he'll shout out things. Apparently, he was getting into alternative comedy and was talking about how a certain comedian was a genius, according to him. Now, Artie does not mention the name of this comedian, but Harvey Weinstein turned around to Norm to ask him what his thoughts were, to which Norm sarcastically said, "Why, is he good at maths or something?" This made Harvey look like a complete idiot to everyone, and he hated Norm ever since. Norm, in real life, was apparently a Christian as well. Now, remember when I said earlier that Norm didn't like it when the term genius was thrown around, and how he didn't like it when comedians tried way too hard to come off as intelligent? Well, here comes our second story, and this is about Bill Maher. Hey guys, did you know that this guy smokes weed and doesn't believe in God? Very deep, I know. Now, I could talk all day about all the interviews that Norm completely hijacked just because he thought it was funny, so let's quickly look at this interview that he had on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher was having this oh-so-stimulating discussion about China. Every single person in this interview, except for Norm, is taking this seriously. Norm decides to bring up pornography into the conversation.
Although, you know, I have been watching, this is amazing, because porno is my favorite kind of movie to watch, and yet, I've seen some pornos lately that my buddies have shown me. Have you seen these ones with all male casts? Gay pornos, they're called? These things are horrible.
I give up.
I should just clarify, I'm not trying to offend any aspiring comedians out there, because you are doing something that I could never do in a million years, and that's entertain people. But none of you are philosophers. None of you are. So please stop it.
Like I've heard, they go, the comedian is the modern day philosopher, you know? Which, first of all, it always makes me feel sad for the actual modern day philosophers who exist, you know?
Norm never wanted to talk about how smart he was, because
He's one of those people who can't take anything seriously.
I say to my doctor, "Doc, what's going on?" My doctor says, "You are fat." I said, "How fat am I?" He said, "You're so fat that if you don't stop, within a month you could have a heart attack or stroke."
That's not funny.
Well, he's not a comedian.
No. I was expecting a joke.
You're expecting a joke?
Yeah, I thought it sounded like yours.
From my cardiologist?
I guess.
hey guys, did you know that Bill smokes weed and he doesn't believe in God? No, that's it. That's all there is to him. Anyways, moving on. So, where am I going with this? Well, simply put, this is the reason why Norm tricked so many people into thinking that he wasn't funny and that he was just an idiot. I personally think there is a massive difference that we still don't know about between the real Norm and the persona he played. Norm did not play himself in Dirty Work, and he did not play himself in Screwed. He played a character 24/7 in real life, and honestly, we will never know the true Norm. Don Ohlmeyer thought that he was dealing with an easy target that he could push around, but he was wrong. The damage had already been done to Dirty Work.
Box office poison.
But what Don did not expect is that it was eventually going to backfire in his face. As I said several times, Don was respected. Emphasis on was. On the infamous Letterman interview with Norm, Letterman famously called Don an idiot on live television. Fred Wolf, one of the writers for Dirty Work, said that Allmeyer was completely out of line, and he went on to say that the network decides to step in and alter the original creative vision and sort of dabble with it, and it's never worked. I have never seen them improve ratings on any show once they step in. One day, when Lorne Michaels was having dinner with Don, and Don had a cheeseburger and a glass of milk, wow, that's kind of depressing, and Lorne Michaels thought to himself, if he outlives me and it turns out to just be about gene pool, I'm going to be furious about it. And to finish this off, Miller and Shell said, an executive with delusions of creativity like a wounded pig is a dangerous animal. Ouch. Don was forced into retirement shortly after this. Folks, this proves Norm wasn't a bad actor. He wasn't a good actor. He was an incredible actor. Don Allmeyer should have gone down as an influential figure. This guy had a hand in creating the term must-see TV, but instead when his name is mentioned, Norm's name is always mentioned. When O.J. Simpson died on 10th of April 2024, he should have been remembered for being the gifted athlete that he was, but instead, Norm's name is always mentioned. Oh, and the murders he committed as well, I forgot to mention that.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Don did not think Norm was funny, and he didn't understand him, and that was his biggest downfall. Ever hear the expression, don't feed the trolls? Well, that's what Don did. Interestingly enough, if we go back to the E! Online article I mentioned earlier, apparently Norm was asked on CNN Monday if, like the character in his new movie, he wants revenge for the way Allmeyer treated him. MacDonald turned his fight into a plug. It would be good revenge if everybody went and saw this movie if they want to get revenge against Don Allmeyer for trying to ban my ads. Now, I'm not deluding myself. Norm was fired after the filming for Dirty Work was finished, and Don tried to halt the TV spots for the movie after filming. But in a bizarre coincidence, art imitated life here. Why are you looking at me like that? Think about it. Travis Cole was a big guy up the food chain who is respected, but then he sees a person he does not like doing something on television and in anger fires his employee. Cole employs Norm only to fire him later, and Norm, with the support of his friends, overthrow Cole and expose him, which leads to him being arrested.
Aha! You didn't count on my loyal army of prostitutes, did you?
Obviously, Don never went to jail because he didn't do anything illegal, but he was still forced into retirement for his actions against Norm. Again, Norm was fired after Dirty Work was filmed. But did Norm have people like Don Allmeyer in mind when he, Joseph, and Fred wrote the Travis Cole character for Dirty Work? Also, I understand this is another reach, but it's kind of funny that Chevy Chase was cast as a gambling addict when Norm in real life was an addict himself who once lost $400,000 on gambling. You know, that knowledge of maths would have worked out very well for him if he used that, but whatever. Dirty Work is a metaphor for what happened to Norm. It's a metaphor for his career. It's a metaphor for his life. Except for the other thing. That didn't happen to Norm in real life. But the other things, they happened, damn it! Wow. Dirty Work to Norm MacDonald is what PT is to Hideo Kojima. Mitch Weaver got his revenge on Travis Cole. And while Dirty Work didn't make back its budget,
Box office poison.
Norm eventually got his revenge on Don Allmeyer and O.J. Simpson. Some people play checkers. Norm played chess. So, I like Dirty Work quite a bit, actually. I like it so much that I can recommend it, right? Well, I can't. No, I'm not joking, I mean it. Because, let's be serious for a second. Let's just assume that for 1 minute that I'm actually right about Dirty Work being a self-aware film. Let's assume Norm actually did write Dirty Work, with the help of Fred and Frank of course, to be a meta inside joke. And if Norm MacDonald really had the idea of Don Allmeyer when he wrote the Travis Cole character, then maybe it's no wonder why this film bombed at the box office. As much as I love this film, it is almost impossible to recommend to anybody because in order to get it, you need to know Norm's sense of humor. And by watching this stupid essay. Now, maybe Norm was too niche for a mainstream audience to like. I think he was. which is why Don Ohlmeyer didn't like him. And even then, it is kind of silly that I've overanalyzed a movie like this, because once again, Norm Macdonald was a person that we will never fully understand, and he was a person who did not take himself seriously whatsoever. If you don't like dirty work, that's fine. In fact, I'm willing to admit that most of the theories I've brought up are most likely not true and are completely off base. If for some reason I ever got to speak to Norm Macdonald in real life, and if I asked him if any of this was true, he would have either sarcastically called me a great guy and said yes to all my questions, or he would have accused me of not owning a doghouse. Wait, platonic relationships? Take a load of this nerd over here. What's all this gobbledygook about platonic relationships, you know? Oh, and I'm really sick of these terrible impressions you're doing of me as well. It's don't quit your J job there, you know?
Hey, Pamela, did Chris tell you he's gay yet?
Norm was a mystery in real life, and dirty work in itself is a mystery. You may not like dirty work, and that's fine. But you want to know how maybe you can appreciate it? Well, as you've noticed, I've uploaded most of the clips from a YouTube channel called I'm Not Norm. There are hundreds of hours of Norm content for you to see on this channel. His jokes on SNL, Norm Live, and you may even see some clips from Dirty Work. If you don't know much about Norm, then I plead that you give these videos a watch, and then give Dirty Work a chance. If you love Norm, you'll love Dirty Work. But even if you don't like Dirty Work, you'll still love Norm, so it's a win-win. During his time in the mid-90s, Norm clearly shouldered a lot of burden. In a time when SNL was struggling, he among others were used as scapegoats. Again, Don Ohlmeyer had to do something about the ratings, and I understand that. But Norm was effectively told that SNL was dying, and he was partially responsible for it. A close friend in Folly died, and then was told he was being let go by SNL, but then wasn't even told when he was going to be let go. He decided to walk if Jim Downey walked, and he harbored that secret for years. Keep in mind as well, Jim Downey would eventually return to SNL in a full-time role, whereas Norm Macdonald would occasionally appear from time to time, but again, it wasn't the same. Don basically did everything in his power to ruin Norm's life. Norm was cancelled before cancel culture was even a thing. Despite all that though, Norm is very grateful for the opportunity that he was given in the first place. He apparently didn't hold any grudges against Don Ohlmeyer. Remember, it was David Letterman who called Don an idiot, not Norm. Norm Macdonald even said that Don Ohlmeyer was a great person. Again, he did call OJ a great person, so we'll take that with a pinch of salt, but let's move on. Norm shouldered that burden, and he helped produce a film that was entertaining. Norm was a mystery, and as we all know now, there was one more thing he lied about. On the 14th of September 2021, it was announced that Norm had passed away from leukemia. He had been battling cancer since 2013. The public was not aware of this, as the only people that knew about this were Norm's brother, Neil Macdonald, Norm's mother, his son, agent, and producing partner. Norm's brother Neil has said that he kept it quiet because he didn't want it to affect his comedy. He didn't want it to affect the way he was perceived. He wanted to carry on. He took great pains to conceal it from everybody but family. Conan O'Brien didn't know about this. Artie Lange didn't know about this. Bob Saget didn't know about this. And no, he didn't tell Jim Downey about it either.
He didn't even tell Super Dave about it!
Let's not delude ourselves. Is Dirty Work a masterpiece? Of course it's not. Is Norm's performance Oscar-winning? No. But should it be a forgettable comedy movie? Absolutely not. Who knows if Norm Macdonald was just a bad actor, or maybe he could have acted but chose not to. Maybe he was just very good at keeping secrets. Regardless though, if Mitch Weaver was played by any other actor, this film simply would not work. This is no offense to Artie Lange, the supporting cast, Bob Saget, or the rest of the crew, because they did have a hand in making this movie, and it's great because of them. But at the same time though, this film is so personal to Norm. Nearly every single joke he makes in this film is something that you can find in his weekend update segments, whether it be his juvenile jokes about prison, or even the note to self segments. Dirty Work is a relic, if you will, with the amazing cast of comedy legends, and it's become an interesting piece of Norm's history and SNL's history. In ways it's quite sad when you look at the cast of this movie, because most of the cast have passed away. Norm Macdonald, Chris Farley, Bob Saget, Don Rickles. And you know what? I think it's time that we give Don Ohlmeyer a bit of a break. I think it's time to forgive him, because even after everything that happened, I honestly think that deep down, Norm wanted us to forgive him. And in all fairness, it is a bit silly to judge him for all this time just because he happened to be a bit of a prick 20 years ago. When Don Ohlmeyer was interviewed on the Rich Eisen show, he was still adamant that he fired Norm because of the ratings, but he did make a joke though in saying that out of the thousands of decisions he's made, the one that came back to haunt him the most was Norm. Artie, Lange and Chevy Chase have talked extensively about the making of Dirty Work on the Howard Stern show, and how the script was originally supposed to be an R-rated film, but the studios interfered. On Artie Lange's Halfway House, Bob Saget said that he wanted to get the original footage for the R-rated film in tribute to Norm MacDonald, but unfortunately, Bob Saget himself passed away on the 9th of January 2022.
Oh, Bob Saget!
In another strange twist, the R-rated cut of Dirty Work is another piece of lost media that we may never see. I would be lying if I said I didn't want to see it. The prospect of a classic Hollywood actor like Jack Warden swearing would be a sight to see. But honestly, Dirty Work is fine as it is. Again, how they got away with the jokes is something I'll never understand. Norm, Artie, Saget, and the rest of the crew did everything in their power to make this film entertaining. Dirty Work is formulaic, but the writing is perfect for Norm. Norm was the man who didn't care if the audience didn't laugh with him, and those were words that came out of his mouth. But maybe Norm did care. Maybe Norm made this film specifically for his fans. There are certain segments on Weekend Update where you'll see where Norm MacDonald will kind of bomb and won't really get a reaction. You may hear a pity clap or a pity laugh, but then you hear someone shouting in the background, indicating that he knows what Norm's sense of humor was. And I think Norm did it for those two people, honestly. Because, contrary to popular belief, maybe Norm did care what the audience wanted. Yes, there are jokes in this movie that aren't funny. Yes, there are jokes on SNL that were not funny and have aged very badly. And again, I personally don't think Screwed is funny. And that's okay, because Norm was the man who dared to dream. He's the man who dared to bomb. Because maybe he didn't want to make you laugh. Maybe he wanted to make you smile.
Tell the people the best.
No, do you know what you just said?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, then please consider going to therapy.